We're looking at the configure services method in our startup helper extensions class. We can call into configure API behavior options to configure how the API controller attribute should behave. Let's pass through a setup action for that. On that setup action, there's an invalid model state response factory action we can set. That is what will be executed when the model state is invalid. This is, in other words, exactly what we need. We're going to pass through a new one here. The RFC implementation for problem details when dealing with validation errors is a validation problem details object. So we need to create a new one. In ASP.NET Core, we can do that via a problem details factory. It's included out of the box. So we get an instance of the factory, and then we use that factory to create a new validation problem details object. We pass through the current context and model state. Like that, the contents of the object can be filled out. This will thus translate the validation errors from the model state to the RFC format. Once we have that, we can start manipulating it. We can add additional information that we might think is useful. Two things that might be useful are a more detailed description and the path as an instance link. What we can also choose is the status code. By default, when the model state is invalid, it's returned as a 400 BAT request. We wanted to change that to a 422 unprocessable entity result, which is a better fit. So let's do that. Let's report these invalid model state responses as validation issues. And we're not gonna stop at just the status code. We'll also pass through a custom type identifier, which we can choose, the status code, and a title. That's it for the response body. Then we want to ensure that we actually return this with a 422 status code, so we create a new unprocessable entity object result, passing through the validation problem details variable, which translates to the body. Unprocessable entity object result is defined in Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC, so let's import that. And we also set the content type to application/problem plus JSON. That too is coming from the RFC standard. Let's give this a try. We're back in Postman and we're looking at the result of our previously sent request. At the time we sent that request, we were still getting back a 400 status code. Let's send it again. And this time we get back a 422 unprocessable entity status code. And we also see quite a bit of extra information in the response body. So far for that. We've been validating on post until now. Let's check out validation on put next.